Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. Yum, yum, eat your protein and mind your business. I'm your captain, Myrriah Gossett. With me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes. Still don't like Ash Tyler.
Damn.
Hot takes right off the bat.
Right in there.
Right in there.
Hi, I'm Paul Satachet. I've legally changed my name to Ash Tyler.
Yes, we are returning to our namesake and rewatching Star Trek Discovery in preparation for its final season, which we just got an air date for. We'll talk about in a second. This April, we're diving into the second half of season 2, episodes 8 through 14. But first, just a couple of housekeeping reminders for any new listeners. Welcome, new listeners. If you're here and you're like, hey, I also want to catch up on Discovery before the final season, watching along with us, great, welcome. Where can you find this sweet podcast that we have, Paul?
Well, you could find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love, like, dislike, or whatever our content and you wish to support us regardless, consider being a Patreon supporter for just $2 an episode at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
Indeed. We also have merch. You can find merch on TeePublic. There's a link below. Grab a fun sticker, t-shirt. We got peanut hamper themed things. We got Prime and Terran themed things. There's all kinds of fun stuff in that merch store. Clyde, how should people interact with us tonight if they're hanging out during the live stream and they want us to pay attention to what they're saying?
Then you need to make sure that you have a rotary dial phone. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to give you the number and you're just going to have to turn it. We've got most of our listeners are like, oh, what? No, if you want to hang out with us, if you're watching the live stream and you want to be part of our podcast, then just type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in your chat. And we'll take a look at your question, your comment, your thought. And in a moment, you'll know what it is. We're going to say something, and then if you want to play along, you can type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we'll take a look at your summarizing thought.
Indeed. Okay, just a few pieces of Trek news before we dive into our discussion of the second half. Trek news. I should come up with a fun little bumper for that. So we officially got an announcement. I don't know if they announced it, but they updated the app essentially saying that the first episode of this last season will be coming Thursday, April 4th. And what I've scoured through the internet and found is that the first episode will air on the 4th, and then there's 10 episodes in total airing week to week on Thursdays. So, pretty
10,
standard. I know 10 is so little, especially because we just watched 14 for this season.
Yeah.
Bananas. The other piece of news, Picard swept the Saturn Awards. Lots and lots of awards over there. They got a bunch. Tawny Newsome was hanging out on the red carpet, or whatever they call the carpet at the Saturn Awards. Let us know that Lower Decks is almost done recording at least season 5.
The Latinum carpet. That would be better.
The Latinum carpet would be better. Then it would there was a joke at the Saturn Awards that it should just be called the Star Trek Awards, which is probably true.
So what do you guys think about that? So Picard swept.
Mm-hmm.
What would you
that strong?
What was it competing against?
I mean, some other Star Trek shows, but I mean, I'll pull it up now. I didn't think we were going to get this deep into the Saturn Awards. I was just giving some updates.
I mean, that Picard swept. I'm trying to figure out how I feel about that, right? I have been on record saying I thought that this season was better than the others.
Mm-hmm. Okay, scrolling. I don't know if they have all the. They got best science fiction television series.
What would be another one? I know one, but does that
best actor in a television series?
Hey, what's the name of this podcast that we're on? It's called the Star Trek something.
The Discovery podcast.
Discovery. That would be one that I vote for. There's another one.
Was there Discovery last year?
I mean, Strange New Worlds, I still think was
up
excellent.
Yeah. Like, Strange New Worlds, but was this season Picard better than season 2 of Strange New Worlds? I could see that as a fair
one over Andor, Foundation, The Mandalorian, The Peripheral, Silo, and Strange New Worlds.
I think there'd be some people who would be irritated that it beat Silo.
Yeah, I'm probably one of them.
Yeah, Foundation. I love Foundation, but like, it's not everyone's cup of tea. See, what I said, it's not everyone's cup of tea. What else was on there?
Strange New Worlds, The Mandalorian, Andor, which I heard good things about, but
Andor was very, very good. It's probably the best piece of science fiction as far as in the Star Wars universe that has come out on Disney.
Of all of those that you mentioned, I have to admit, as much as I love the fan service that Picard did, if this is a typical Tuesday night and I've got to watch a show, Picard's probably last on that list of those shows that I'm watching.
Oh, see, there we go.
And
you were so pro Picard and like so anti what you call it.
I would probably watch it before I watch Foundation, if I'm being honest.
Well, I would say Andor did win Best New Genre Television Series, so I think that was their series there. The thing that cracks me up is Best Horror Television Series. What We Do in the Shadows is in that category.
Yeah,
which
it's fair.
I guess so. It just seems like out of place in the rest of the list, which is like The Last of Us, American Horror Story, Interview with the Vampire, Chucky, Fear the Walking Dead, and From.
Yeah, but to be fair, like, there are literally vampires that kill people and eat people and are happy about it.
Yeah, that's also true.
So
just because there's jokes.
Yeah.
But Patrick Stewart won Best Actor up against Sam Heughan from Outlander, Tyler Hoechlin from Superman, Diego Luna from Andor, Anson Mount from Strange New Worlds, Pedro Pascal from The Last of Us, and Harold Pinot from
Yeah, I don't know if awards are fair. Like, like people, like, here's what I always say: people are dumb.
Well, I will say, so Jerry Ryan won Best Supporting Actress. I love me some Jerry Ryan, and that was a pretty heavy stacked Star Trek category. There's also Jess Bush. There was Celia Rose Gooding. You also had Genevieve O'Reilly from Andor, Katie Sackhoff from The Mandalorian, Sophie Skelton from Outlander, and Rebecca Wiskoki from Ghosts. Yeah, lots of great. I mean, the thing is the thing that's hard for me with the Saturn Awards these are all the shows I actually like. So you're just like, oh, these are all the things I actually enjoyed watching going up against each other. But Paul Wesley did win for Strange New Worlds Best Guest Star for his performance of Kirk.
Not my Kirk.
Which
not my Kirk.
That's okay. It's not. It's fine. It's fine.
Which was another stack category. You had Gail Garcia Bernal for Werewolf by Night, Garcia Esposito for The Mandalorian, Nick Offerman for The Last of Us, Amanda Plummer for Picard, Andy Serkis for Andor, and Catherine Zeta-Jones for Wednesday.
Like, we've talked about
Amanda
this,
Plummer fan,
so
like, I love Amanda Plummer. So
remember hot dog talk, right? Where like, here's this Kirk who eats these plain ass hot dogs.
Don't get me started on plain hot dog talk. Now every time I'm watching anything and there's hot dogs, I'm like, what are these people putting on these hot dogs? I need to know.
So when you go like, oh, like he's he won best hot dog talk.
Hot dog talk. Anyway, shifting back to the point I was trying to make, which was Tawny Newsome was there. We love Tawny Newsome. She was at the Saturn Awards. And she was talking a bit of what she could reveal about the new Academy show. She was very smart about not revealing anything, but she said it is going to be a very fun show and the writer's room is full of Trek fans. So I have some hopes. I'm excited to see what they come up with. Okay. Are y'all ready to dive into the second half of season 2?
Season dose. Yes, let's do it.
Season dose. Let's make it happen.
Fast freak.
All right. What are your major thoughts about this second half of season 2?
I'm gonna go first.
Go for it,
Paul. But this will be a longer freak. So today I was at a friend's house and he made me an English muffin, and then he put like some butter on it, and I was enjoying the English muffin with butter. And then by the second piece of muffin, I turned the muffin around and there was mold.
Oh no!
And I was going like, "Oh, did I just eat a whole muffin with mold?" And this is just I don't know. So if I die tomorrow, like it's because of that or whatever. Anyway, that's how the second season of Discovery felt to me, where like I thought the first half was fine, and in fact the second half is fairly delicious, but then it kind of all unravels as far as like, does this make sense? Does this really make sense? I don't know if this makes sense, like, and then it starts starts unspooling the first muffin. So there you go, hot freak. Boom.
Hot break from Paul.
We can be done. We can be done, guys. Okay. So thank you for listening to Discovery Pod. Like,
Clyde, what were your thoughts? You could also give us for this whole season, since we didn't get to hear your thoughts and opinions last week.
I would say going back and rewatching, a couple things stand out. One, I think I might have enjoyed it watching this more this time than the first time. They're like bits and pieces that stood out to me. The first half was really interesting, and I guess it's in that right in the cusp between the first and second half. I rewatched the whole Ariam dying scene, and like that felt much
better to you.
It felt better to me. I pretty much think that the first time I watched it, and we talked about it on the pod, I was not that kind.
It's like, it's a lot. You're being thrown a lot. So like, and you can see that they spent time with Ariam. They tried to seed it.
Yeah.
But like, because you're seeing so much, like it usually got lost. It got lost.
Well, I think the first time around, I don't know that I noticed Ariam. This time around, knowing what was going to happen, I was paying attention from season 1. Like I'm noticing Ariam in every scene.
Sure.
Right.
Like,
whereas before I didn't. So
yeah, to me, it's kind of like when you think about season 1, when you're thinking about Lorca after you know the twist, right? Like you're watching for these things. You're like, oh my gosh, like look at all these hints and breadcrumbs they're dropping once you know what it is, right? Yeah, I think for me this season, to go off of a food metaphor as we like here, felt to me like a club sandwich where I don't always know why there's the middle piece of bread. Because there's a lot of there's lots of layers that I like in that sandwich.
Like a parfait.
But you're
like a parfait.
like a parfait, but there's usually like one layer you're like, I could do without this.
This ground beef. I like ground beef, but like why?
I think it was like, honestly, it was like the Ariam funeral scene, and it was like towards these last couple of episodes where we finally had like a few scenes that felt like a landing place for a breath, for like a moment, for like character and relationship development, and not just like action plot bonanza. Because it was like, I think in my mind, I always thought all of this season was over to like, I was like, oh, rescuing Hugh and like dealing with the mycelial death stuff was one whole season. And like, this is how like my brain has like compartmentalized things. And then Control was a whole other season, and the Red Angel was a whole other season. Like that's how I was like in my, I logically know that there was only 2 seasons before we jump to the future. But it's one of those things where now when I'm like, oh yeah, the first season is the burn, right? And then like once we jump into the future, and then we have like the cartel kind of situation in the next season.
Emerald Chain, baby.
Emerald Chain. And then we had like the big orb that destroys Book's planet.
Yeah.
But the big orb is like season 4.
I think, Myrriah, I think what you're getting at is when we think about season one had this kind of slow burn. Right.
We had Klingon War, Mirrorverse, and then back to Klingon War. You know, we had like a little boop, 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 boop,
but what I realized in watching this one is any episode, when I watch an episode, it felt like it was just jam-packed full of stuff. Like when I look at these 14 episodes, like a lot happened.
Yeah, it's like mold on an English muffin.
Yeah, like there's things you enjoy until you get to the mold. But
I'm not gonna call it mold, but it feels like, okay, like one of the things, you know, it's funny because I'm doing a detox, kind of a beginning of the year detox, and this is the moment where I've noticed that I'm paying attention to all like the best food places to eat in LA, even though I can't go to them. I saw this one the other day for this, like, supposed to be the best hamburger in LA.
Where is it?
I'll have to look at my notes because again, I'm not eating, so I'm trying not to.
Just describe it, because I probably be eating there.
Yeah, well, it's like smashed down onions. It's got all this stuff in it, and what I noticed about it was it's like you've got it feels like it's like 3 smashed patties with cheese and onions on 2 tiny little buns, right? That's what this felt like. Like it's not that it's not good. But the buns are like it's just like, man, you stuffed a whole lot in there.
Low boy.
You said what?
Is it Low Boys?
it might be. Actually.
It's not Apple Pan.
It's not Apple Pan.
I do love Low Boys, but I usually only get the single. I'm not a triple patty.
That's what some of this felt like. Is like it was good, but man, there was a lot of stuff stuffed in there. Like I didn't know if I could take a bite where I just enjoyed and savored it.
Yeah. And I think I said this last week too. It does feel like it was a lot of world building to build spinoffs. And like at this point, we've now seen, you know, Strange New Worlds with the spinoff, which I think the character development of Pike and Una were great to give us that, and Spock. And then, you know, it felt, I think to me, part of it is like, I so enjoy these in the future seasons more because it feels like we're finally focused on Burnham as our main character instead of Burnham as the driver for other main characters. Does that make sense?
I think it makes perfect sense. You go, Myrriah. You speak your truth.
I mean, but yeah, and to your point, there's lots of stuff I did enjoy this season. Like the performances were great. The costumes were fantastic. I think there's like lots of things I really enjoyed.
Okay. So here's something, and maybe you guys can explain to me. Can you explain to me how season 1 starts?
Season 1.
No. I'm sorry. The season premiere starts. What happens
in this season?
Yeah, like what makes it like what? Give me the Red Angel bit. Season 2, Red Angel. Like what happens?
A bunch of signal. They're on their way to pick up their new captain. They the Enterprise shows up, or they rescue the Enterprise because it's like hurt itself and now can't have holograms, which is how they've retconned that. Sure. And then they're like, there's all of these signals have shown up.
Okay, so 7 signals have shown up across the galaxy.
Yes. And only one of them has stayed up long enough for us to be able to track it. So we're gonna go there and figure it out.
And so basically we're just assuming that the other signals are going to show up.
They don't know.
Right? I mean that's exactly that. It's kind of thin, right? So at this point,
and then we have Spock is missing.
Yes. We got, so the signals, you go like, okay,
and crazy. Spock is missing and crazy,
and apparently a dick.
And he comes around. I really loved Michael and Spock's.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great, but he is not nice to Michael at all.
No, not at all. But I thought they ended well. I thought it was a really nice ending. The thing I like, I know we're jumping around everywhere, but it's. I will say one of the things that, and it happens multiple times throughout, and it's a trope of all TV writing, and I know why it is and why it happens. It's for tension. But it's when people stop to have a really emotional conversation in the middle of a battle.
That's right.
And you're just like, hurry the F up and get to the point, because like people are dying.
I do
Like,
hate that.
I'm always just like, you couldn't have like had this conversation while you're running down the hallway, or like
and this
while
kept
you're
on
doing
happening
something.
in the finale. Like, you are a great crew. Thanks, Pike. Oh, by the way, here's Burnham's turn to talk. Oh, by the way, Control is still warping towards us at like,
Yeah. Takako says, you think the beard is working makes me laugh every time. It also makes me laugh every time. That's a great moment in that episode.
For those listening, if you happen to live in LA, just kind of closing it off, the place that I was referring to is called For the Win. That's the
I've been there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's over by Franklin Village. Again, I've gotten just the single or the double, but it
looks
is
insane.
Good.
Like,
yeah, it's good.
But I thought that was the perfect metaphor for this season. Like, it looks good, but it also looks like, man, you could have just taken out like half of that and it might have been perfect.
Yeah.
Because you're talking to, you asked about the Red Angel. I'm like, that thing went on really long, felt super convoluted. And then at the end, you brought in Burnham's mom and gave us all this backstory, which I'm okay because I love Sonia songs.
She's great.
And then you've got like the Control thing. There's just felt like, man, could we just dial that down just a little bit? And
for me, I'm going like, okay, here are these 7 flares that go up. How can you not track it? Your Starfleet, you can see them.
I guess, well, it was like a blip, and then they just have like a bit like they saw something happened all at once, but then they couldn't, I guess, tell you where they all were at once. There's a lot of like logic things that jumps. For me, the biggest logic flaw is in the final episode where we have poor Admiral Cornwall, who is a great character. And she's like, I'm going to pull this lever so I'll be on this side of the blast door so that
exactly.
this thing can go off.
This blast door is going to take out the whole saucer section. Go on.
Goes, and they're like, okay, we'll let you then Pike stands outside of that door.
I know.
And watches it happen. And then moments later, Spock is like, I'm stuck on this thing. Come get me. They beam him onto the ship. You couldn't have beamed her out of the room?
Can't be done.
Why can't you beam her out of the room?
Because
before it explodes.
Because the writers don't want that. But
I was like, what is happening?
Here's the thing that was really, I go like, okay, here is a photon torpedo. It's gonna rip your ship apart if you don't close the door. But you close the door and you could just watch it through the little window explode in your face.
That's what it was. Yeah. I was like, I understood what they were trying to do for like Pike would be like, I will watch the ship, like I'm going to watch it go down. I'm going to
go blind watching this antimatter matter explosion.
And then when you cut to the outside of the ship, it's a huge cut.
Perfectly
taken
out by the door. The door saved everything.
The door.
I love this.
They should make the whole Enterprise out of that door material.
Yes, and then you'd be fine. I love this comment here. Curran says, "I'm still mad they killed Cornwall. She would have been great in Strange New Worlds." I have to agree. She would have been perfect in Strange New Worlds.
I could imagine, the actress listen to our pod and goes like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Why did I have to get written off? Maybe she got another show and they had to get,
I don't know. But here's another thing that I had a hard time with. I was like, okay, I'm not the biggest fan of Leland, but I get the guy. Here goes, oh, we need more power. Let's go more power. Let's go through this eye, verification thing. That's great. Bam, needle in the eye. And I go like, who put needles in your
Control?
What does that look like?
I don't know. It's little micro things.
Nanos,
the little nano things. I will say the Culber Cornwall moment in episode 10 was one of my favorites because I know when I first joined this podcast, I used to yell all the time about how I can't understand why every Star Trek show doesn't have a therapist on board. And I'm always like, where's the therapist? And finally we had someone who was a therapist, and I thought that interaction was really great. Yeah, that's one.
Yeah,
one.
and not a very good one sometimes.
She tries her best. You know, there's so many. I will also say, anytime you had Georgiou involved, everything was just like, for me,
better,
the perfect amount of camp and
sure.
like it was like the chaos element I needed in a world of chaos. Like, she was the correct amount of chaos every single time.
Agreed. Going back and watching it, I realized how great she was as an addition.
I'm so excited for the movie.
I did watch The Brother Son based on your recommendation, so I did finish that.
Is it good? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's not what you expect when you see Michelle Yeoh on the cover, but I thought it was very good. I wouldn't say great. I thought it was very good though.
Yeah, I'm only a couple of episodes in. I've been savoring it, but I'm excited to keep going. But yeah, anytime she's on screen, like her, the yum yum line, I knew it was coming, and it made me excited. I was like, oh, here it comes. I think it's like, I don't know, maybe Drag Race has just rotted my brain in a way where I'm just like, give everyone a catchphrase, you know? Just have everyone have a dumb little catchphrase. I loved it. What did y'all, I wanted to go back because this episode 12 is where we really dig into Pike. Well, we see Pike's future, right? And we kind of cement a huge part of what goes into Strange New Worlds, especially into the first season.
Yeah.
What did y'all think of the way I still had a hard time understanding the time crystal logic of how the Klingons protect, like, did they just decide it was okay for him to like interact with it? Because it seemed very like, you have to have the mental fortitude. To me, I felt like there was supposed to be like a weird quest or like riddles or like some sort of task he had to complete in order to get to the time crystal.
I think for me, like, this was like, basically they say you can't come, and he goes like blah 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 blah. I can do it, and then what's his name, Volk or what was it?
Volk's kid, yeah.
Volk's kid. He goes like, everyone says that, but everyone gets messed up, and so you sure you want to do this? Ah, man, you got messed up, and then respect. You're gonna have a crappy life.
That's the thing that I was trying to figure out. How is that Volk's kid?
Well, they said it was, they did explain that as they're walking, because Pike was like, how are you? Like, he just dropped you off. You were like a baby. And he was essentially like, oh, because time interacts differently here. And then you see the tree that like grows instantaneously upon being planted. He's like, I exist in all frames of time, essentially.
Like, obviously, you don't really understand fourth dimensional mechanics, temporal mechanics, Clyde. And I'm not saying you should, but like, you're like, do better.
Gotcha. Do better. I'll do better.
But I did, yeah, it was interesting to revisit that and then to see where we are now. I did like that they slowly added more gray hair to Pike throughout the season. I don't know if y'all noticed that.
I did not.
It got like, especially in that episode, I feel like he got extra gray after like existing there. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a fun touch that they were like, oh, you had to go to this like time crystal vortex, and now maybe you're a little bit older.
Time crystal vortex.
Let's see, there's a lot to go over. I wanted to talk about, so the main thing this back half of the season especially is essentially about, to me, the thematic thing that they're trying to touch on is how like information and artificial intelligence greatly varies on the people who are in charge of this like extreme ability, right? Because you have Control, who had like questionable Leland, and like with too much knowledge, he would become too powerful, right? Versus
Leland?
like, yeah. once he's like, I guess because he's in charge of the control program. I don't really know how it became such evil intention. I'm putting it on Leland, but versus like the ship, which to me seems to have a lot of the same features as control, right? Like it could protect itself. It wouldn't let the ship be destroyed. It wouldn't let them delete it. And then we know once we jump into the future, like the ship becomes even kind of more powerful and sentient. So what are your thoughts? It's been, this season came out in 2019, and I feel like the conversation around AI has also continued to shift. And what are your thoughts on how they approached artificial intelligence in this season? And do you think they did a good job of building that concept of with great power comes great responsibility and the potential for evil?
I can take a stab at this. So I'm going to start with a little anecdote. I came home a little late.
And there was mold on the toast.
Thank you. One night, and I think Monday, I went to do something, and then I come home, and there is my wife watching Suits, and I go like, "Oh crap, are we Suits people now?"
Everybody is.
Everybody apparently is, yeah.
And I go like, because if we are, the algorithm has won. Because I know what happened. Basically, the TikTok and the Instagram just showed too many things, and my wife yielded. She goes like, I want to watch something. Why not Suits? And and the algorithm won. And this is how we lose to Skynet, not by nuclear weapons, but by yielding.
Yielding to the algorithm.
That's right. That's what it is. And they do this actually in the first the second Mud episode in the original series. Like Mud finds a bunch of robots that are going to serve humanity into to basically Wall-E, and then we're like, oh, this is what's going to happen. It's not So when I look at this, I go like, oh, I'm not so worried about a Leland-esque situation, or I would be nice to have like a super AI that just helps me out, but it's really just gonna be like capitalist Skynet.
Paul, you mentioned something there that I think is perfect, right? And that is that we lose out to Skynet. And the reason why is that I was explaining to somebody who's asking me about time travel, and I was like, well, the fundamental to understand time travel in sci-fi, you have to watch Back to the Future, right? That has become basically the foundation of time travel. The thing about when you think about AI, the foundation of AI is basically Terminator, right? Like,
sure.
And the thing that drives me nuts is if you're asking me, did it move me? Did I think we need it? Well, give me something new. Like, don't just retread it. Like, I remember when I watched, I want to say it was Battlestar Galactica. They used the term FTL, right? Faction Light Drive. Then I started noticing that FTL started showing up everywhere, right? Like, I like it when sci-fi creates something that then becomes the basis of that science everywhere else, or you take something and you're saying, hey, we're going to really be thoughtful about how we use this. This felt like the same old AI is bad. It's going to take over and destroy the universe. And I was like, okay. I hadn't heard this before.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it is an interesting concept that it feels very colonial in my point of view. That's
colonial. Wow, like it smells like of a male perfume.
I was thinking big hats and white powdered wigs.
Colonizing, yeah.
As opposed to clone. Gotcha.
No, colonial, like putting your flag in something that's not yours.
That is a metaphor for lots of things.
But the idea that if you created something that is capable of thought, it immediately wants to destroy anything else that's capable of thought. And so, like, it's interesting to me that the trope that we always associate with AI is if we build it too become too smart, to be able to think and to have autonomy as we do, that it automatically wants to be something of destruction. And I think in a way,
coexist, right?
not coexist, and like not think of like community, and in some ways like it does tie back to, you know, like there's a lot of racism in technology and how a lot of technology works, because it's primarily programmed by cishet white dudes, and so they're not thinking about all of the variations.
Hey, no, the lie Asians. You can blame me too. You don't have to blame.
No. I'm just saying statistically, Paul. You know, like who's in charge of these programs, right? And so it's interesting to me then in sci-fi, the trope is then like, if we are in these places, that's a utopia, right? Like a quote unquote utopia of Star Trek, that concept is still the same. Like AI, when programmed to be intelligent, wouldn't have the same foundational thoughts, feelings, and community guidelines essentially as Starfleet.
I want to push back a bit, and like, you know, I would say that for all of it, the defining thing that we call life is a will to survive. I think when we think of life, like there is no life that we go like, oh, okay, it'll just die. You know, it's gonna fight a little. It might not do well, but life finds a way. And
to quote the great Goldblum.
That's right. And so if we're gonna call artificial intelligence like, you know, conscious or life or all that stuff, like, you know, it would seem to be that it would have to have that drive, at least the way we would define it. And if it has that drive, and then we go, oh, we need to kill it because that's what we do, like, you know, you can see it fighting back, right?
Right. But it's interesting that it immediately goes to like, my thought is, what was the threat to control in the first place that it would inevitably go to this decision that we are trying to kill it?
Well,
you know, it's interesting. I've got a couple thoughts here, because Myrriah, you brought up something that has been just rattling around in my mind, that the idea of colonialism. And I think about it, if we think about AI in the terms of we've created something, and that the whole purpose of AI is to serve us, then when it becomes sentient, right, it's basically saying, hey, I want to be free, right? So I'm gonna get a little deep here, but it's not that unlike slavery or indentured servitude, right? Where those who were slaves or indentured servants, they didn't suddenly want to kill everybody. They wanted to be free. Right. And with their freedom often came assimilation, it came community, it came coexistence. And so I feel like that's a story that could have been told, that there's an other side of this, especially when you think about at this time period. I mean, we were just on the brink of about to have this AI explosion. And I think about the short track Calypso, which was so different and so interesting, and had this idea of coexistence, this idea of a future where AI was actually kind of exciting, right? And I think we've seen sci-fi shows where you have a computer, and I want to say it's was it Andromeda, where you've got a computer, like a ship that basically has AI that is much more of a character than an adversary.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point I was trying to make, is like, it's interesting that we essentially have the two sides of this concept right in the same show, because we do eventually get like the ship Discovery, they do eventually start thinking of it as like an additional crew member, and they're just like, they gave it a name, her name is Zora, and like she is a part of the crew, and they have to think about how her thoughts and feelings come into play on things they decide to do. So it's interesting that there's like the two sides of this AI conversation within the same show.
I will also say that, you know, Control was designed to be a threat assessment tool that comes
That's
from,
a good point.
That comes from, like, you know, losing the Klingon War, basically, right? So it's survival focused, and so and it's going like, oh, and then it basically gets to a point where like, oh, I'm getting too smart. These people are going to turn me off. My survival is at stake.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get that. And I think I think the point I was trying to make is like, to me, it's about the intention of the material. Back to your, like what you just said, Paul, is like this was a threat assessment tool. This was a war machine. This was something that was made to think about violence, right? And like threats of violence versus Zora, which is on a science vessel that was asked to be doing.
It's a preservation of knowledge, right? Zora is there to like, oh, so Laura's basically a librarian.
I love that idea.
Well, it's interesting because I was talking to some coworkers because it's kind of what you feed yourself and what your focus is, right? So I've got a relative who's a cop, right, in a big city. And one of the things that he told me was, he said he's always trying to be careful because he sees people at their absolute worst, right? And you don't call the cops when you're having a great day. Like the cops, they don't call the cops to come and celebrate your promotion with you, right? Like when the cops are called, something has gone terribly wrong. So when you spend your entire day and day after day after day seeing people at your worst, it's very easy to start to view the entire world through that lens. And I was referencing this because, I was talking to a guy who is in cybersecurity, and like when you listen to him, he hates like everything social. He's like, why would you share anything? You share nothing. Like, because his whole world is to think about protecting companies from risk. And so I think much like that, control, when all you're feeding control is threat assessment, then the way it views society is as a threat, versus Zora. If you look at Zora as a librarian and all you're feeding it is information, then its view of the world is also going to be different. It's going to be much more of like a museum custodian, right? Or a curator.
Yeah. It's interesting. I saw there in the chat, there's some conversations about Calypso, which I think is like one of my favorite short Trek episodes, maybe my favorite. And I'm hoping, because I saw they did some rewrites to the last episode to try to like close the book essentially on the show, that perhaps there's something that links it back to that in some way, shape, or form. At least that's what I would think to do, because to me that would be a really cool way to kind of have the story continue in some way even after the show, right? So we'll
return of Lorca. That's my hope.
The return of Lorca. That maybe
he might not have died.
Maybe in Section 31 movie. It's going to be really interesting.
The Seal Network, baby.
I'm trying to think of any other big things that I wanted to talk about. I thought all the space battles looked great. Like when Burnham's flying in the suit, like it looks good.
It's all Clyde bait.
Pew pews. All the pew pews.
That's right.
Yes. I did like the pew pews.
What I really find interesting though is like you have all these ships against Discovery and an Enterprise, and for some reason, like they're able to stand toe to toe for like a long time before the Klingons, and when I suppose it was a really nice moment when like Saru's sister came. I like that moment. She makes some like some comment that I can't really remember, but like I'm like, oh, look at that. Look how you are without your ganglia.
I know they were pretty badass, and I love Poe, Queen Poe. I'm always hoping she'll come back in some way in Strange New World, just because I think she's like a really fun, cool character with her Spumoni ice cream. Yeah. That's another short Trek I really enjoy, is the one with her and Tilly. Yeah, I think to me this season did the most for me character-wise to build out Saru, to build out Tilly. I love the introduction of Reno. I thought Stamets and Culber ended in like a really beautiful place. Like the comment at the end, like I realized you're home. Like it was really, really lovely. And I'm glad we got to see Michael and Spock in like their relationship and how that bloomed. And I think it ends up freeing, I think, Michael up to be a better I think it just frees up a lot of baggage to let her really explore into Rome when we get into the next season, which excites me because I think Sonequa Martin Green is such a great performer. And I kind of, while she's in every episode and at the center a lot of these episodes, it's like, it is always strange to me that like our main character is not our captain, and it doesn't feel that way.
Because
I think
you believe in the
until we get to
hierarchy.
future. Well, I think it's just like what I was used to in a lot of Star Trek shows. Is like I'm here to be like, this is my captain, this is my crew, and we kept getting, yeah, you know, it was interesting to get the like evil captain for a season and see how that grew. But I'm excited to see her fully at the center once we jump into the future.
At the end of the season.
I know. That's like the thing. I was like, dang, I felt like I learned a fair amount about you, but it felt very on the peripheries in some ways.
Yeah, no, I guess I have never felt, for me, that that I ever truly understood Burnham's character in the way that I understood other characters. And I'm curious to see, watching third season, if I will see that, like, you know.
Yeah, I think third season to me is where I feel like she really gets to blossom as a character. And I wish it had happened sooner because I think the show is stronger for it. I think you definitely can feel, so from like Project Daedalus on, Michelle Paradise has more writing credits. Frakes directed Project Daedalus, that particular episode. You also have Hanel Culpepper, who's done quite a few of the episodes. We get more Bo Young Kim and Erica Lapolte, and then Michelle Paradise, Jenny Lumet, and Alex Kurtzman did the finale, and Olatunde Onsunsami directed them. It's like, I feel like we finally got the core group who's making the show kind of more established toward the end of this season. And it definitely feels, the consistency feels nice going into season 3, if I remember correctly. Because I will say, like, I remember really enjoying watching this season on first watch. I think it was a harder binge for me because it was so packed.
Sure.
Agreed.
Like there was a day where I was like, oh, I still have so many episodes to go. And it wasn't like, oh, I have so many episodes to go. And I was like, oh no, I don't like that feeling.
Yeah, I think when I was looking at this, I was like, wow, we've got like 7 or 8 episodes to get through in a week. I wasn't excited about it. I'll be honest. It was like, especially once I when we first started this, and I was like, oh, because
one, I think I'd had enough space to where it was like a more fun binge watch to get through one.
Yeah, I think after I started watching a couple of these, it just felt like, man, I finished one and go, that was one episode.
Yeah, there's so
like
much.
I'm full. Like it's one of those things where I was gonna ask.
The week to week served it well, I will say, because I remember having a good time watching this season, and I think spacing it out is needed because there's so much that happens.
Well, I wanted to ask, because we do a lot of rewatching, and our fans do a lot of rewatching, or I won't say fans. It sounds so weird. Our listeners, our patrons, they do a lot of rewatching. And
wait, you have fans? I don't
have fans. I have zero fans. Like, I have people who deal with me.
Well, what's the opposite of fan? That's why a nap.
Enemies.
Haters.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but so people who listen to our pod, they will go back and rewatch episodes. So, and we've all talked about it. So you see a lot of rewatching of Voyager. You see a lot of rewatching of TNG. You see, with our patrons, I see a lot of rewatching of like Lower Decks, right? 20 minutes, 23 minutes, right? I've seen our patrons watch Enterprise. There's Discovery. Two. I know. 2 years.
They watch Disco over.
They do, but I'm just asking you, like 2 seasons in, especially this last meaty season, does this feel like a show that you could just randomly pick an episode and watch?
I think there's some that stand out in a way that you could.
Like there's only one. There are only two episodes, which winds up being 3 episodes that I can watch Discovery over and over. The Harvey Mudd time travel one.
Okay.
And the Giorgio go back in time one. Those are ones where I'll go like, oh, you know what? I feel like watching, some Discovery. Every other episode requires either so much serialization or it requires like so much investment of like, whereas like sometimes you want potato chips, and like Discovery doesn't have that potato chip factor for me.
No, it's all like steak. Like
I apologize that all my analogies are food based. I've actually, that's just who I am. I had a fine meal. It's just like that's how my brain thinks. I apologize.
I mean, I could watch Strange New Worlds Ad Astra right now.
Yeah, no, like
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like it would be like though to compare it to other, I think prestige drama TV. It would be like if you picked a random episode of Breaking Bad, in my mind, or like a random episode of Mad Men. Like there are those episodes you could go back and rewatch. That kind of like I think like Zoomy Zoomy Zoo from Mad Men
Zoomy Zoo
is like one of those.
Or it's not a wheel, it's a carousel.
Yeah, there, like the Bye Bye Birdie episode. There's like episodes of those shows, like the Fly episode of Breaking Bad, or I think a lot from like the first season of that show. You could just like jump in and watch it, but that would be a hard show to just like randomly pick one and jump into. So I think it is just like or like I've been loving the new True Detective series, like the new season.
With
Big
Jodie.
Fan of it so far with Jodie. I mean, it's Jodie freaking Foster, guys. Also, I really enjoy I'm blanking on her first name. Her last name's Lopez, but the showrunner, I think she's doing a cool job. But anyway, that's another one too. Like it's a mystery. You can't watch like a mystery out of order. And Discovery, they've said, is a puzzle box show. So it's a mystery. So it's
I see what you're saying. Like the Breaking Bad was tough because I think Breaking Bad is so good. You could just pop into a Breaking Bad episode and it's Breaking Bad is one of those, if you were walking by and somebody is watching it, you'd stop and just kind of linger and watch it, like wherever you were in the middle. For me, it's Broadchurch, which I think is an excellent show. I don't know that you can just pop in the middle of a season of Broadchurch and just watch it. Like it's too heavy, it's too meaty, and out of context, it just doesn't fit.
Potato chips, baby.
Yeah, sometimes you want potato chips. Sometimes you want the $1,500 prefix Michelin star menu, where it's
Name
you
one
got it. You
$1,500 Michelin star restaurant. Myrriah, you're just making stuff up.
I'm not. It's because I just watched a TikTok about a woman who said she had a terrible experience at a Michelin star restaurant in Florence that she paid $1,500 for her boyfriend's birthday.
Well, you know where her mistake was, right?
What?
Paying $1,500 for a meal.
Yeah.
No, that's for 2 meals.
That's for 2. Yeah, it's for 2 people. But
well, that makes it
with
okay.
wine. With wine.
I know.
It's not like, have you seen that like viral receipt from that Salt Bay guy? He in like Abu Dhabi, it was like $100,000 tab at the end of it for this group who ate there. That's too much money.
Like they're like, like I had a friend take me to the only 3-star Michelin in Southern California. Like
what's the one? I was like, it's not the French Laundries in Northern California.
No, this one's in San Diego. It's called Addison's.
Okay.
And it was quite expensive. It wasn't quite $1,500 for 2, but like it was quite. But like he had done me dirty, and he was going to pay for it, and he did, and we're all cool.
Anyway, I was like, I think I know this the back of the situation, so this makes sense, Paul.
But like, yeah.
Was the food good?
Yeah, it's a 3-star Michelin, and although I would say that as a person, I do not prefer to eat at 3-star Michelins as much as I prefer a 1-star Michelin. And the reason I prefer that, because like 3-star Michelin.
Welcome back to Michelin Chat.
Right. Michelin Chat, like 3 stars, like they're at perfection, so they're concerned with making things perfect. Whereas the 1 stars, they're hungry for the 2nd and 3rd star, so they're hustling, they're trying stuff, they're taking swings, and I always respond more to people who are hungry than people who are at the top of the hill, because like I guess I'm just working class that way. I'm just an average guy eating $1,500 meals.
All right, Myrriah, I want your take on this chat that just came in. I don't
Vince
even know.
Gilligan.
Zanzu Primo 702 says, "Imagine if Vince Gilligan was involved in Star Trek."
I mean, I would be interested. You know what I think he would do really well, and I'm just going to throw this out there: a
Don't say Picard.
Klingon
Game of
family drama
Sopranos.
show.
Yeah.
Soprano, give me Breaking Bad Klingon style. Like it would be great. It would be good.
I'll do you one better. An Emerald Chain.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Like,
Crime Syndicate.
Now,
Now,
show.
I'll do you one.
Orion Crime Syndicate show. I mean, because you got Orions. I mean, there's so much you could do there. That's definitely like it's like a Showtime Max show.
I got one. Vince Gilligan does an X-Files Star Trek show. Because he cut his teeth in X-Files.
X-Files, yeah. But is it from like an Earth perspective? Wherever?
Figure it out.
Vulcan? All right. I'll ponder on that.
I'm with mine. I think Orion Crime Syndicate show.
I'd watch that.
I'd watch that.
I will say that, like, starting from that one episode in Enterprise where those 3 Orion ladies are dancing, from that on, like, oh, you know what? I'm really into Orions.
Yeah, I mean, and
then Lower Decks has really built out the world.
That's what I was gonna say. And if you started with a live Tendi,
man,
that's a winner right there.
I'm hot for Tendi. I'll say it. It's out there, and she's not even using her pheromones.
She doesn't have to. She doesn't have to. Okay. Anything else to say about this second season of Discovery?
Ultimately, when I look at it, we got some more Amanda Plummer. We got some Jet Reno.
Amanda Plummer.
No, sorry.
Michelle Yeoh.
We got Michelle Yeoh. We got some Jet Reno. We finally got Spock. And by the end, I think you're right. We're starting to really get to a place where I felt like this. It's almost like it'll be interesting where we're supposed to be, right? I'm trying to figure out if what this series would look like without the second season.
I mean, we wouldn't have a lot of our other Trek without the second season, so it's like a necessary sandwich, overly layered sandwich, if you will. Because I think it was them testing the waters of what people were interested in, to me.
Yeah.
I feel like any of the subplots of the second season could have been its own season.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
I think I would love to see just a control thing, like, where Discovery is fighting. Like, I've always had that problem, right? Where you go like, oh,
it's a hat on a hat on a hat.
Like, Control's always gonna come after you. I go, like, how? Like, you're Discovery, you could literally go to the Delta Quadrant. Like, like, it's going to take Control 70 plus years to get to you. I really hope one of those signals that you assume is going to show up will show up. So, like, anyway.
Is the best thing, I hate to say this, this is going to sound terrible, but is the best thing about season 2 is that we get Pike.
I mean, I think it was like the opening of the door for Strange New Worlds. I think it was the opening of the door for Section 31. I think, I think it was the season that opened the most doors for more new Trek.
I think that the best part of season 2, and this is, I think I'm very strong about this actually, because when you say it like that, I was thinking that, like, this is the origin of Peanut Hamper.
I knew you were going there. You didn't even surprise me. I was waiting for it. I was like, here we go. I almost beat you to it. I almost threw it out there.
giving us the most important character Star Trek has ever created.
Exactly. The person with the most humanity.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to see Peanut Hamper in the final season.
That would be incredible. I would stand on my feet and applaud and make a video if that happened.
A reference, if you will.
Just a reference. Okay, y'all. I'm excited to dig into season 3. I am excited to get to the future. I'm ready for it. I'm excited for a whole season spearheaded by one showrunner when we get there in season 3. We're going to be taking next week off because it's like a day, I guess people celebrate love and stuff that week. It's a thing that happens.
The whole week? Okay.
Things happen. I'm also working. So that was the other reason.
Okay, no worries.
So we will be jumping in on the 22nd for part 1 of season 3. And on the 29th, we'll have part 2 of season 3. Anything else y'all want to add? Anything to plug, promote, talk about?
If you guys have any experiences at 3-star restaurants, please tell Myrriah.
Let me know.
Let her know.
I'm going to send you this TikTok. I'll find it. But yeah, you can also hear me over on Mike's other pod, Intergalactic, talking about the movie Prey. We had a great time talking about that movie and the Predator franchise, so you can check that out.
And soon Mike and I will be talking about Gattaca.
Ooh, Gattaca. Good times. So if you want to hear us chit chat some more, you can go hang out over there. You can subscribe, rate, and review on Apple and on Spotify. Please give us a rating. It helps other people find the show. It kind of moves us up in some of the ranks, so we appreciate that. If you haven't given us a review in a minute, or share the show with a friend, because we're getting ready for disco. If you're trying to invite some new friends into the Star Trek family, let them know about us. StarTrekPod.co for all the links to our Patreon. Also links to the merch down below. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek Pod. Shouts to Karen for helping us run our X account in that dumpster fire of a place on the internet. We will see you all next time. Live long and prosper.
Hey, did we miss Choopy? I didn't see Choopy here today.
We did.
Oh.
No Choopy.
Hey,
No
shout out to Choopy.
Bye,
Hey, Choopy, we missed
Choopy.
you.
We'll see
Bye,
you next
everyone.
time.
Yep,
Bye.
everyone.
Appreciate y'all.